What if we name things for what they're not? We'd give teachers non-oranges and fly non-cars. Ridiculous. So why is your world-changing organization called a nonprofit? Truth is, you're for purpose, and the more you raise, recruit, and retain, the more good you can do. That's why Bloomerang's giving platform is built for purpose with insights that help unleash generosity. That means less admin and more impact. Learn how you can raise 26% more at bloomerang.co/purpose and profit. Welcome to the Purpose and Profit Club podcast for nonprofit leaders, mission-driven creatives, and social entrepreneurs. Get ready to stop dreaming and start doing. Here, ideas become action. We prioritize purpose and profit. You ready? Let's go. Welcome back to the Purpose and Profit Club podcast. I am thinking about how yesterday morning was my first foray into career day. I threw my hat in the ring and I was a career day expert guest. What is the word for my son's fourth grade class? And the night before I was like, I think I should prepare for this. I don't really know what I'm getting into. It was very, very simple, kind of like sign up form. And the day before somebody said to me like, oh, well, I have these slides and and I was like, slides? I don't have any slides. And then I thought about all of the work that I do on the podcast and all the work that I do in speaking and webinars and conferences. And the truth is, I don't really need slides. Slides are a benefit just to show some pictures to, especially to kids, to keep them engaged. So I did end up throwing some photos onto some Canvas slides. That way they had that there. But it was a good exercise in like, how often are you out there talking about the work you do? How often are you talking about your mission? And if you feel like, here's a litmus test, you could show up for career day for a fourth grade class and just wing it and do excellent, then that's a good test of like, yeah, I'm out there in the field. I'm out there talking to donors. I'm out there in front of my community talking about our work. And if you feel like, Christina, I would want at least a week to prepare, then that's a kind of a key indicator of your edge, of a growth opportunity for you. Because I want you comfortable talking to fourth graders. I want you comfortable talking to 40-year-olds. I want you comfortable talking to 80-year-olds, right? So it was really fun. I had about, 20 minutes or so. I got to talk about my work, which I actually was like, I knew would be a little bit of a challenge because I'm in the middle of the nonprofit. I don't work in-house for the nonprofit. So I have, I was taking the sort of entrepreneurial business lens, but also talking specifically about the work some of y'all do. And I was able to share some of the work of our clients in the club, of the clients I've worked with across not only the United States, but across, we hit South America, we hit the Caribbean, we hit some international nonprofits. So it was really, really fun. Today, we're going to talk about the 2 skills you need to raise 5 figures every time you fundraise. Now, listen, I'm going to be telling and going through these 2 skills with the lens of the smaller shop nonprofit, maybe the nonprofit that hasn't hit their first 100K yet in annual fundraising revenue, or maybe they're stuck around 100K or 200K and hasn't really broken past that. However, for my larger or more established orgs, maybe you're rocking and rolling at $1 million past, you're going to find some really good strategies today that you can deploy to make those 5 figures or even 6-figure fundraisers easier. Okay. So let's begin. Most nonprofits make fundraising way harder than it needs to be. So if you feel like you're carrying your entire nonprofit's fundraising efforts on your back, you're not alone. I literally see this almost every single day, whether it's a call, an email, a direct message I receive, where the executive director, oftentimes the nonprofit founder for the smaller shop, feels like, listen, I'm the only one fundraising. It's all on me. My board is hands off. It's up to me to make this happen. I'm stuck making every single ask. So if that's you, if you're like nodding along, you're like, yeah, here's the thing. Solo fundraising is not sustainable. And the good news that I have for you is I actually don't want you fundraising alone. When you look at larger scaled organizations, even at the $500,000 mark or $1 million mark, right, in annual fundraising revenue, it's not a solo operation. And what I mean here is it's not about having like a bunch of staffers. It's not like, oh, well, she's saying we need to have a development person and a major gifts officer and a blah, 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 and a blah, blah, blah. Sure, eventually, yes, you will. But that is actually not what I'm talking about today. So I'm going to share some good news. One, that we're going to get you out of solo fundraising because you don't have to do this alone. I'm going to break down the 2 essential skills you'll need to raise 5 figures every time you fundraise. Okay, so stick around today. I'm also going to share with you my new program, the Sprint Method. This is a step-by-step system to make fundraising repeatable, scalable, and way less stressful. Sound good? All right, let's go. So here's the problem that I see. Most fundraisers actually struggle to raise 5 figures. You're struggling at your 10K goal. Most nonprofit leaders I talk to are stuck in one of these 2 fundraising traps. Okay. One, they wait too long to ask. They spend months of cultivating relationships, sending updates, waiting for the perfect moment, the right sunshiny day, the right phone call, the right da-da-da, only to have donors disappear when it's finally time to give, right? Like you're waiting, you're like kicking the can, right? And it makes sense. One reason is many of you have been taught cultivation cycles take a long time. But you're listening to this podcast because you're as impatient as I am, and you have a sneaking suspicion that the old way is no longer getting you where you want to be, right? Donor habits have changed, consumer habits have changed, and you're seeing that like this old school way isn't working anymore, okay? The other trap I see is you're trying to do it all alone. So maybe you assume fundraising is 100% of your job. And so you're not engaging your board, volunteers, supporters to help. And the result of that is a constant cycle of stress, burnout, and big one, unpredictable revenue. Okay. And if you're thinking, Christina, no, I am asking my board members to fundraise. They're just not. I was just on a call this morning with somebody who said, yeah, like, how do you get the board to fundraise? I mean, they're a good board, but they're just not well connected. They're a good board, but they're just not doing the things they said they would do. Okay, we'll address that. Here are the 2 skills you need to raise 5 figures every single time. All right, skill number 1, confident, proactive donor outreach. This is about leading the conversations, not waiting for donors to, air quotes, be ready. Your funding doesn't depend on how many donors you have. It depends on how many conversations you start. So let's talk about what prospecting is. Let's talk about what lead gen is. Many, many years ago, my first foray into entrepreneurship was through real estate. And I had to build my list from scratch. I had to build my list of prospects from scratch. And at that time, I was hanging around with exactly 0 people looking to buy and sell a house. I was in my 20s. They weren't around. No one was buying a house. None of my friends were buying a house in their 20s. And so I keenly know what it's like to start prospecting and lead gen when you have no leads. Okay. However, that is actually not an excuse to say that you can't be successful, because you can. It's totally possible. So you do have to get donors in your pipeline. That's one. New prospects, getting out in front of people, having those moments like I had in front of my son's 4th grade class, talking about what you do, talking about your mission, seeing where people are leaning in, raising their hand, asking to help, wanting to learn more, right? So the best fundraisers don't wait for the perfect moment, they create it. So here's what that looks like. Instead of hoping donors will notice your campaign, you reach out first. Instead of sending another passive email, you pick up the phone and make an ask. Now, I want to bookmark that when I was at GiveCon, one of the great things that a colleague of mine, John Kosofsky, said was, be wary of surveys when you survey your audience and people say, I prefer email, I prefer text, I prefer direct mail. Because this day and age, most people are not going to say, oh my gosh, call me. I prefer to be called, right? If you think about it, I would never self-select that I prefer to be called. And the truth is, I can count on one hand the organizations that have called me in the last 12 months because it stood out. Even the conversation I didn't have, but the ones that left a voicemail, I'm like, I can think of them. And I'm thinking them in a warm way, not in an annoyed way, a warm way, because the voicemail they left or the conversation that we had was so good. So picking up the phone and making the ask is so, so important. And when you don't necessarily have the tools, support, practice, it can feel very, very daunting to do. So that's why we will give you that support inside the sprint method. All right. Another way that this shows up is instead of waiting for them to decide, you guide the conversation with urgency and clarity. Okay, this is a big one. So I see that you have a goal. Let's say you have a goal to raise $50,000. And I ask you, by when? For what? And the general answer is the sooner the better for our programs, right? I am not compelled as a donor or donor prospect to take action based on that, right? So the reason why some fundraisers never hit their goal or barely squeak by to the finish line is because it's lacking story, it's lacking urgency, and it's lacking that specificity, right? And those are all killing your campaigns before they really get out the gate. So one of my clients was really hesitating to ask for major gifts. She thought, I got to cultivate more. I'm not sure. Or, they gave to that campaign last year. I coached her through a bold outreach plan, drilling in that story, that urgency for her campaign. And within 30 days, she landed a $10,000 gift, new recurring donors. So the lesson here is, if you don't ask, the answer is always no. If you don't ask, the answer is always no. And a lot of what we do in this prospecting donor outreach process is building your capacity to hear no. Because inevitably, on the path to hearing lots and lots of yeses, yes, I would like to make that $10,000 gift. Yes, I'm going to make a donation. Yes, I want to support your fundraiser. You're also going to hear no, and you're also going to hear silence, which silence in this case is a no. A non-response is a no, right? And so expanding your capacity to hear those no's and not make it mean that you're doing something wrong, not make it mean that you should stop, but actually realizing that those no's are the path to yeses. So I'm going to give you the good old-fashioned running metaphor here. So if you knew you wanted to run a marathon, you probably wouldn't sign up for a marathon and have that be your first foray into running, right? You might start with running a mile. You might start with signing up for a 5K. You might sign up for a 10K, then a half marathon. You with me, right? And in that process of running a 5K, you're going to have some fails. You're going to not hit your goal on time. You're going to maybe have it go sideways. Maybe you're more sore than you expected to be, right? It's going to be paved with peaks and valleys, and that is literally the path to get there. So building up that skill of proactive lead gen and outreach, and also that mindset that goes along with that skill is key. All right, let's move to skill number 2. This is fun because this speaks to my own impatience, right? Fast action-oriented campaigns where you stop solo fundraising. So the mistake I see is that nonprofits are consistently dragging out their fundraising efforts for months and trying to do it alone. Or if you're trying to bring in some volunteers to help you, trying to bring in some board members to help you, you're doing it in a way where it's not easy, it's not low lift for them, or they're unclear on the path to success. And so they're not participating or engaging. A 5-figure campaign doesn't need to take 6 months. In fact, it shouldn't. It can happen in 10 days. It can happen in 14 days. Okay. But here's the key. You should not be the only one asking, even if you're a solo executive director. You don't have to fundraise alone. So in the sprint method, we're teaching how you can focus on a strong story with a clear, urgent reason to give now, not in 6 months, not next year. Peer power, getting others to amplify your ask so it's not all on you. Removing friction, making it easy to donate in seconds. You know my test. Can I donate to your nonprofit from my couch, on my mobile phone, on my iPhone? If not, we have a friction problem, okay? If I have to get up and grab my credit card and punch in numbers, we have a friction problem. If I need to only use PayPal or Venmo or some other app, we have a friction problem. If you want me to mail in a check, we have a friction problem, okay? Injecting urgency, setting deadlines and matches that drive action. Urgency is such a strong play, and we see it all the time in the for-profit world. We see it all the time in the e-commerce world. I can't tell you how many purchases I've made, even just this month, last year, whatever, because there was urgency. Urgency, a sale was going away. Urgency, an item was going away. Urgency that free shipping was going away. Urgency that a discount was going away. There's so many ways that you can drum up urgency that your nonprofit isn't doing. And that is keeping your fundraiser feeling like a slog. Keeping momentum. Speaking of slog, right? No more mid-campaign drop-off. So depending on how long your campaign is, especially the longer the campaign, the more you will experience what we call that mid-campaign slump. Sometimes I call it the messy middle. When you have tools and a strategy to keep momentum up, you not only won't experience it, but you'll be prepared for momentum boosters to keep that momentum up to drive you across the finish line. Last thing, tackling churn. I heard this a lot in some recent conversations with other nonprofits and other tech companies. This idea that so many organizations are spending so much time acquiring new donors when in fact it's so much easier and cheaper to keep your existing donors. Okay. I want to say the number is 5x, but I need to look that up. It is so much easier. Think about this, to take somebody who already knows, likes, and trusts your organization and have them give again than it is to go find a stranger who has never heard of your organization, tell them about your organization, have them make their first gift, right? And then follow up. So the key here is twofold. I never want you to do all this work on the front end to bring in new donations, new donors, only to have them be one and done, right? We want those donors retained. And you need a clear retention plan for tackling those churn, while also putting new donors, new donor prospects, new businesses as sponsors inside your pipeline. That's how you get out of that fundraising roller coaster. Okay. So here's how you stop solo fundraising and still raise more. We got to get you out of what I call program heavy executive directing. So this looks like where you're a solo shop ED and you are so heavy on operations and programs that you're barely giving yourself time to actually fundraise. And don't forget, your mission doesn't exist without the funds to do it. And your mission stays small without more funds to expand. The timeline for your programs to grow only gets bigger and bigger, right? It only gets longer and pushed further out the more that your funding plateaus. I love this thought experiment, which is like, if you were to get 100K today dropped into your account for your nonprofit, what would you do with it? And usually I hear, oh my gosh, I would be able to start this new program. Oh my gosh, I would be able to clear our wait list. Oh my gosh, I would be able to expand to a wider market. I would be able to serve more people. I would be able to, add this extra thing that we've been dreaming about doing. That is possible for you. It doesn't have to be a dream, but you do have to change the way that you're spending your work week, whether this is a part-time effort. Maybe this is something you're doing on nights and weekends or early mornings, right? Maybe you have a day job, and what you're doing in the time you're working on the nonprofit is so heavy on programs and ops, you're never giving yourself a chance to succeed. You've got to carve out fundraising time. I call these CEO days. And we teach a process inside the sprint method for batching CEO days. Now, the good news I have for you is a CEO day doesn't actually have to be an 8-hour day. CEO day can be a batch of time. So here's how you stop solo fundraising and still raise more. 1, we're going to activate peer campaigns. That means getting your board members, volunteers, and donors to share campaigns and make their own asks. There are ways we can gamify it. There are ways we can get board buy-in when there has never been board buy-in before. There are ways that you can get volunteer participation if you've never experienced that. So if you've ever tried this and it didn't work, do not sell yourself short and say, this doesn't work for us. You just didn't try it right? If you ever think about, we're going to go back to the example of running a marathon. Now, I could say, I tried training for a marathon and it didn't work. Is that true that that's it? That was it for me. I only got one shot and it's done. It's never a possibility. Absolutely not. Do not give up so fast. Maybe the way that I was training wasn't with the right trainer. Maybe the way that I was training was completely guessing my way to do it. Maybe the way I was training was on a hope and a prayer and fingers crossed, right? You want to set yourself up for success. And just because you dipped your toe in the water on this does not mean it won't work. You didn't have the right system and support to make it happen. Here's the second thing, donor matches. I love it when somebody's like, I don't think that anyone cares about a donor match, right? I'll hear that on LinkedIn sometimes. Do donor matches even work anymore? And then the data is right there. It just swoops in right in front of their face to back it up. Yes. Yes, 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 yes. Donor matches work. You should be securing them with every single campaign. I believe it was the We Are for Good. My friends at We Are for Good, they had I want to call it a summit. They had a thing and they brought in Scott Harrison from Charity Water, and he was talking about some A/B testing they were doing to a fundraising page or for a campaign. And they were testing two different styles of donor matches. And the donor match that converted the highest was what I would call a pattern interrupt donor match. So instead of saying double your gift today, all funds will be matched by a generous donor up to $10,000. They had one that was like, it was like, oh man, I'm going to have to go back and find it. It was a weird number. It was like they had a 4.5% match or 4.5 times. It ended on a decimal, or a 0.5, 50% match, something like that. I think it was 50% match. And it was a pattern interrupt. If you landed on a page that didn't say double your donation, but had a different number, even a 3x match will do this, or a 6x match, depending on what you've got. A 50% match, meaning up to 50%. So for every dollar you put in, we'll put in another 50 cents thanks to a generous donor. That converted higher. Why did it convert higher? It was a pattern interrupt. It stops you in your tracks. It's believable. It's unique. It's different. But like, what a way to do that. Like, what a great, simple way to do that. If you're securing a donor match anyway, how do we want to play with it so it has that same experience to your donors and your prospects? Donor matchers, yes, they work. Stop poo-pooing them and start doing them. If you don't know how to secure them, are you a part-time executive director or one-person fundraising team juggling all the things, but still struggling to break past 100K in revenue? That's you. You're invited to join me on Wednesday, March 12th at 12 Eastern for a free training on the Sprint method, where I'll show you how to stop the never-ending fundraising hustle and start raising 5 figures or more every time you run a campaign. It's built for busy nonprofit founders and executive directors like you. Plus, you'll get an exclusive pre-sale offer to join my new program, the Sprint Method, at the lowest price before we launch. Save your spot now by clicking the link in the show notes or going to splendidcourses.com/sprint class. See you there. Or if you're going to the same donor again and again, you should join the Sprint Method and we'll teach you how to do it. We've had clients who have said, Christina, I only have like kind of 1 or 2 donors who we've ever done this with. And we taught them a process and they were able to secure a brand new donor match. And not only that, their donor match said, this is so cool. I've never been asked to do this before. It was such a wow moment for them. Talk about a great experience for them. All right, another step, engaging your board. We need to give them clear, easy ways to participate, even if they're not fundraising experts. And I want to offer, especially if 9 out of 10 board members, sometimes it feels like 10 out of 10 board members are not fundraising experts. Sometimes it feels like 10 out of 10 board members don't want to fundraise, feel a type of way about asking their friends, feel a type of way, avoid leveraging their own networks. And that is just a symptom that we haven't trained the board. And that's okay. That's just a symptom of we haven't given them the tools to succeed. I love thinking about the people in my life who aren't natural salespeople, aren't natural, outgoing people, right? If I said to them, hey, I need you to be a peer fundraiser for this cause you care about, they would hide under a desk, right? They're like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to make my friends donate. They would have lots of thoughts about how that would feel and they wouldn't want to do it. However, I could get that same person to be a hell yes if we just gave them the tools and also the ask so that they saw the vision of why they're doing it and why it's not at all salesy or squirmy or weird to do that. sometimes we just need to share with them, like, this is what it looks like. They don't know what they don't know here. Okay. That's another way to say it. They don't know what they don't know here. So the simplest way to get a no is when you just say to them overtly, will you fundraise for me? Will you? And they're like, no, I don't want to do that. Right. Instead, you want to actually have a peer fundraising campaign, a peer fundraising system that they're like, oh, I saw Joe did that. Okay, that seems super easy. Or you pitch it to them in a way that they see the why and the meaning behind it and why it's not icky or salesy or weird or off-putting at all. And for my introverts, why they can do it without ever having to make a phone call, or they don't have to do it by, posting on TikTok or anything like that. We meet them where they are. So you should be engaging your board. And if you've tried and if you did and it didn't work, it doesn't mean it won't work. It just means you didn't have the right system and tool to make it happen. So a client of mine was also fundraising solo. We activated her first peer campaign and she raised over $12,000 in just a few weeks without having to make every ask herself. You can do this even if you have a small board. You can do this even if you have a handful of volunteers. You can do this even if you're the only in-house staffer. But you can't scale your fundraising if you're the only one doing it. You can't scale your fundraising too if you're looking, by the way, to offload your fundraising to a consultant or to some sort of fractional person and you don't have your current donor base. Somebody said that to me recently, so that just dropped in. So let's address that real quick. This was a newer nonprofit under 100K, and what they basically said was, they themselves aren't like great at fundraising. Can they hire somebody to do this part-time? And I was like, okay, let's play that out, right? But they didn't have a donor base. They didn't have a donor pipeline. So you can hire someone to do that for you. And they're going to say, who do you want me to call? Where are the leads? And if you only have a handful of people, you're wasting money, right? And as the executive director, especially if you're the founding executive director, you need to master this skill before you offload it to somebody else. This is not a skill for you to offload to somebody else in the beginning stages. At the stage where you're under 100K, you need to master this skill. And then you need to have a process for this skill. When you're growing and scaling, then you could bring in a part-time development person, something like that. Okay. So the short answer is no, don't do that. And the reason being, you want to master it first, because you don't want that person who is at a part-time or even contract work to be winging it for your nonprofit. You should have a clear mission. You should have a clear value statement, a clear ask and outreach process, a clear report back and follow-up process for them to then execute. If you don't have any of those things, you should have a clear peer-to-peer toolkit. If you don't have any of those things, you first need to, again, master it first before you offload it. So I want to tell you about the sprint method and how I came up with it, why I came up with it, and who it's for. So this is for somebody who hasn't yet figured out how to make 5-figure fundraising repeatable. Your organization may be under 100K. Your organization may be bringing in fundraising revenue a little bit over that, but you haven't figured out how to raise 10K or more in every single campaign without stress. Your fundraisers are basically kind of this year-round thing with a big push at the end of the year, but there's no clear plan or path to bring in money in what I call sprints. So if you picture me, if you're just listening to me on your podcast streaming app, I'm right now doing like a peak and valley with my hands. Your fundraiser should feel like peaks and valleys, starts and stops, and not just in November and December. You should be running fundraisers at key points throughout the year. Okay, at key points. Did you run a fundraiser yet? Do you have one coming up? Because you should. And those fundraisers should be bringing in money Q1, Q2, Q3, and of course, Q4. And it should be a peak and valley. It should feel like for your donors, for your subscribers, for your fans, for the people in your ecosystem, that they're very, very clear when you are fundraising, when you are doing your sprint, and very, very clear when you're in nurture, when you're doing social proof, testimonials, that phase, right? The story phase. And it shouldn't feel like they, as a subscriber on your email list, as a follower on your Instagram page, feel like you're always in a constant state of fundraising. You feel me? It should be very clear. Oh, they're running a fundraiser. Oh, I see that. Oh, I see that it ends on the 30th of the month. oh, wow, I see they have these clear pieces. I see they've already raised $17,000 and I know their goal is 25. That should be my experience. If you don't have that down on lock, the sprint method is for you. Okay. I'll teach you how to raise 10K every time you fundraise or more without the stress. Confidently make big asks and land major gifts. And here's why I included the major gift piece is the newer, smaller nonprofit is usually going to friends, family members, community members, etc. And sometimes that means they have high net worth individuals giving, larger gifts, but oftentimes they maybe don't and they only have a handful. And it's really important that you diversify your donor base because a $100 gift is so important and we need lots of those people in your ecosystem. And when you have a large goal like 50K, having a pipeline of major and mid-sized donors who can take big chunks out of that goal is essential to get you to that 500K and ultimately million plus in funding. Okay, so it's really important that we give you the tools to lead gen, to do outreach. We have pitch scripts. We'll walk you through that process. Okay. We'll also teach you how to stop overthinking and start getting money in the door fast. So as I said earlier, it shouldn't take you months and months and months to raise $10,000. I oftentimes, when I was building out the curriculum for this program, I think about a faucet, right? So that when you need funding, you turn on the faucet and you run a campaign. And then when the campaign's over, you turn off the faucet versus what I see very, very common is the faucet is a trickle and it is a trickle in for months and months and months and months and months and months until you finally hit your goal. It should not feel like that for you and also for your donors and supporters. They can feel that trickle. It doesn't feel good because it does feel like you're just constantly asking and not meeting your goals. Okay. We'll also teach you how to stop doing it alone and create a powerful fundraising team of peers and advocates. That's why I created the sprint method. So it's my shortcut to 5-figure fundraisers on demand. No long cultivation cycles, no guessing, no waiting, no more doing it all yourself. You get a proven step-by-step system you can access 24/7 in our members area. This is a video curriculum, so you'll get access to all of the videos. You can go at your own pace. Some people love a fire hose style for this. Some people like to go, nights, weekends, whatever feels good, lunchtimes, right? And go at their own pace. We will have done for you scripts, templates. You never have to wonder what to say. Plus, we do live monthly group coaching with me. So you always have a clear action plan. So you can bring anything to group coaching for feedback. We can workshop, we can role play a major donor conversation, a matching donor conversation. We can work on your board engagement for the sprint method for an upcoming campaign. You'll get anything you want, 360-degree feedback on those live monthly calls. Plus, we have a private community where you can connect with other nonprofit change makers for accountability, celebrate your wins, and get that momentum. If you are serious about breaking out of solo fundraising and building real funding momentum, this is for you. I built this program. It is very, very different. If you heard me talk about the Purpose and Profit Club, where we teach a more advanced technique, which is layering in the social street team method and more advanced techniques in fundraising, this program is very different because it's built for nonprofits who have not yet mastered how to make 5-figure fundraising repeatable. If you go to splendidcourses.com/sprint or click the link in our show notes, you can go and check out what's inside this sprint method. It is a 12-month program. It is $2,000 at our early bird rate, okay? Because we are already pre-selling it to our wait list. If you join at the time that this episode is live, you will get that special early bird pricing because it is a new program. And we also have a payment plan for $180 a month. So you're not allowed to tell me that it's not within budget because $180 a month in order to figure out and get the entire system to fundraise and create 10K campaigns or more on repeat is worth it every single time. So I built it with the part-time founding ED in mind, and I wanted to make it very, very accessible. If you have questions about the sprint method, I want you to do one of two things. One, you can email me questions, or two, you can head over to my LinkedIn and you can send me a message with any questions. I will look at your organization. I will tell you if it's the right place for you. And if you're like, I'm deciding between the two, I'm not sure what program is right for me, then I can help you. I'll help you figure that out. All right. I am so excited to see and share the sprint method with so many of you. And I hope that you see that all you need for fundraising 5 figures every time is the skill of confident, proactive donor outreach and fast, action-oriented campaigns, ones with start dates and finish dates. We need great, juicy stories, and I can't wait to support you create yours. See you next time. Hey, high achiever. I know your sights are set on ambitious, world-changing goals. In the Purpose and Profit Club group coaching program, you can get the support, motivation, and strategy to accelerate your impact. I like to say it's where the inner work meets big impact and big funding. Go to splendidcourses.com/waitlist and you will be first to be notified when we open up doors, and you'll get special bonuses when you join our waitlist. See you inside.